Welcome to Group 5's presentation on Gestalt therapy. Gestalt psychology was founded by three German psychologists, and this is where the term figure ground stems from. The figure represents the whole that is separated from the ground through a boundary. These psychologists believe self-awareness is the key in realizing those figures, which actually represent the client's environment. Gestalt therapy was founded or fathered by Fritz Perls in 1951. Perls was born in Berlin, then moved to Johannesburg in 1933. Then he moved to New York in 1964, where he actually left his wife and children because that's how strong his belief was that people should be independent and not sufficient on others. Gestalt therapy is heavily influenced by Perl's environment, whether if it was location where he was living, or his analysts, the people around him, or public figures such as the Prime Minister of South Africa, where he adopted his holistic views from. Gestalt therapy is a humanistic approach and an experimental therapy. Gestalt therapy is based on the belief that a person can control their own reactions to their outside environment through fully understanding their own wants and needs and communicating out loud effectively those wants and needs. This type of therapy views depression and anxiety as a lack of responsibility for one's own actions and reactions. And Gestalt therapists actually used to be very more confrontational, but the therapy has now become softer and more person-centered. There are three Gestalt therapy goals that are in congruence with our client population's goals. The first Gestalt therapy goal is self-definition and personal power. The clients are encouraged to take more responsibility for the way they communicate their feelings and their reactions. Gestalt therapy is about the self-empowerment of the individual, but that cannot be reached unless they take responsibility. Controlling these aspects leads to the better livelihood and happiness of the client. The second goal is expression of anger. Clients are encouraged to own their feelings fully and express them through usage of assertive language, which will be discussed later. And the final goal is expanding on behavioral alternatives. Gestalt therapy is an experimental, person-centered, and holistic therapy which uses techniques that embody these qualities. The client population are females in high school with depression. The symptoms of females in high school with depression include early pregnancy, increased physical illness, substance abuse, low energy, irritability, social withdrawal, low concentration in class, may be defiant towards teachers and parents, quick weight fluctuation, sexual abuse, self-harm, and suicide ideation. Adolescents may actually not be able to identify that they are dealing with depression because depression comes with a lot of self-critical thoughts, and this may lead the female to think that they are actually a failure and not depressed. 41.5% of girls experience stressors, claiming 14 to 20 more stressors than boys their age, leading to the risk of depression. Between the ages of 13 and 15, girls' symptoms actually rise, while boys stay pretty stable. The reasons that we found were important to advocate for girls in high school with depression were that 8% of adolescent females are depressed, with only less than half of them actually receiving treatment. 19% of teens from the ages of 13 and 17 have attempted suicide. 1 in 4 girls suffer from depression. Girls are more likely than boys to experience feelings of sadness, have suicide ideation, or commit self-harm. Girls are more likely than boys to be forced to participate in sexual acts, experience online bullying, and identify as LGBTQ+. Girls are more likely to experience depression due to relationships. And finally, girls are more likely than boys to have body image issues and to drink alcohol. The first technique used is a two-chair technique. Here you have a picture of the counselor and an empty chair with their female client next to them. The goal of this method is for the patient to define their inner conflict, understand their conflict, and then have ways of solving their conflict. One chair represents the dysfunctional thinking, the other chair represents the healthier alternative, and both chairs represent the perspectives that the client is reflecting on. The client bounces back from each chair and is able to work out their own inner conflict and help make better decisions. This is also somewhat like the empty chair technique, which is also a Gestalt therapy method, and that is where the client expresses their feelings to the empty chair. So normally two chair and empty chair are somewhat interchangeable techniques that Gestalt therapists use. Leslie Greenberg had an experiment that shows the two-chair technique as a split, or a, quote, division of the self process into partial aspects of the self, unquote. Greenberg's study concluded that the two-chair technique was more effective than problem solving or clients receiving no treatment whatsoever. The experiment consisted of 16 clients, ages 20 to 46, and some of them used a two-chair technique or some of them used their own self-reflection. After 1 week, clients using the two-chair technique had greater conflict resolution regardless of the intensity of their own conflict. The two-chair technique led to more decisiveness than problem-solving did. Studies show that the empty chair is effective in resolving unfinished business and releasing pent-up anger. Butler formed a biological model concluding the inability to express intense emotions can actually lead to depression and chronic pain. The second technique used is the language technique, and this is very important for the client population of female high schoolers to be able to use assertive language. So, for example, Gestalt therapy encourage clients to use the pronoun I instead of we, it, or they. Women are encouraged to use assertive language claiming absolute ownership of their emotions. Instead of saying I guess or maybe, use I am. So instead of saying I guess it makes me upset, I am upset, I am angry. It goes back to the goal of owning the emotions that you feel. Women are encouraged to change verbs from can't to won't and want to should, which again demonstrates the responsibility of your actions, which is very important to Gestalt therapy. The language technique is paired when clients are conducting the two-chair or empty chair techniques because language is used during the performance of those techniques. So Bohart in 1977 concluded that the use of language while using the empty chair method aids clients in developing emotional awareness. These techniques are more effective than emotional discharge, intellectual analysis, or no treatment whatsoever, relieving anger that can lead to depression. Bohart had 80 female undergraduate students resolve anger through one of 4 methods, either role play, discharge, intellectual analysis, or control. The results showed that role play was the most successful. Therefore, two-chair and empty chair technique is a form of role play. Assertive and accountable language, when paired with other Gestalt therapy techniques, can actually teach female clients the balance between sensitivity and strength and between kindness and assertiveness. An example of the usage of the two-chair technique and the language technique is a 15-year-old high school student named Kristen has had recent grade drops in her advanced placement English course. The teacher was very alarmed when Kristen failed to turn in her project on the class reading and then failed a test, because Kristen is normally an A student and is very cheerful in class. When the teacher spoke with Kristen about her failing grades, she became very defensive and rude. The teacher felt compelled to report this behavior to the school's counselor. The school counselor spoke with Kristen, who revealed she was broken up with by her boyfriend of 2 years, who she loved. was close with his family, and is now feeling many negative emotions that she cannot be bothered to do her schoolwork. The counselor works with Kristen to identify her negative emotions. The counselor sets up 2 chairs that are empty. These 2 chairs represent the 2 options that Kristen has to either continue to be angry while ignoring her schoolwork and the outcomes of that choice, or to process her emotions and continue to study and do well in school, and how that outcome will make her feel. Kristen was hesitant when speaking to these chairs by using "I guess I am angry and mad how sudden the breakup was." The counselor encouraged her to own her language and say "I am angry and hurt." Again, this goes back to the ownership that clients have to be accountable for how they feel in order to work on how they feel. Kristen then realized through the 2 chair technique that her stress will only continue to grow if she ignores her schoolwork, and she realized that that will lead her to become more disappointed in herself. But the other chair, through speaking with the other chair, she realized that if she leans on her strengths of enjoying school, she can actually use that to cope with her breakup and to empower herself. The strengths of Gestalt therapy is that it creates accountability and self-awareness with clients. This goes along with the theme in social work that self-determination is important for clients to grasp, because it leads to them feeling in control of their life and therefore making decisions to have a better quality life. Gestalt therapy is adaptable because it can be applied to different age groups and with different issues that they may be facing. The big one is for them to be able to improve their decision-making skills. And it relives a difficult time in a safe, supportive way through the empty chair technique, and allows people to weigh out different options before actually going through with the action. And it implies that by doing these techniques, the person will have more confidence in their ability to make decisions. The weaknesses of Gestalt therapy is that it can actually neglect external factors inhibiting a person from succeeding, such as social, political, or economic. Gestalt therapy encourages clients to be completely independent of others, which is not very realistic. Women find part of their identity in the success of their relationships. And finally, Gestalt therapy could cause clients to fail because they have these unrealistic expectations that they are totally 100% in control, when again it ignores external factors. So if they fail at something because of an external factor, they may not know that and therefore blame themselves, which reiterates the opposite point of Gestalt therapy, which is a lack of confidence in one's own abilities. To recap what was discussed, our client population is female students who are in high school and suffering with depression. Gestalt therapy views depression as a lack of communication within oneself in regards to their own wants and needs. The rate of high school students with depression is high, particularly with females. The use of assertive language for females leads to empowering and accountability of emotions, resulting in a feeling of more control of their own outcomes. And the 2 chair and empty chair technique work to resolve indecision and resentment. And resentment can lead to depression if it is not dealt with. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation, and thank you for a great semester.